Good morning. My name is Barbara Bynum, and I'm the mayor for the city of Montrose. And it is my pleasure to welcome you to this week's business update call. The city has tried to host this periodically throughout the pandemic in order to communicate important information to our business community. And this morning, I am honored to kick it over to our Montrose County Commissioner, Sue Hansen. As many of you are aware, the county has a public health department, and our county commissioners serve as the Board of Public Health. And a lot of the questions that are coming up from our business community right now are questions about how to stay open safely, what are the rules, and what are the best practices. And so the city is hosting this great meeting, but we are going to kick it over to the county because they are the ultimate authority when it comes to these kinds of questions. And then the city is here to support you in whatever way we can. So Commissioner Hansen has a presentation this morning. We will have time for questions. If you want to type those in the comment box or in the Q&A, the panelists, including myself and Commissioner Hansen, will be able to see those questions and make sure that we address those, if not during the webinar, then individually with you following the webinar. The webinar will be recorded and available to watch for folks who were not able to join us this morning. So with that, Commissioner Hansen, welcome.
Great, thank you, Mayor Bynum, and welcome to everybody. And I want to start it off just by thanking the businesses for being patient and staying open and being tolerant during this entire process. Obviously, this has been the hardest hit on businesses that cannot operate at capacity. So we want you to understand that we know, and we're doing everything in our power to make sure that people, businesses can stay open. So I'm going to share a couple of things. I had hoped to have a robust conversation this morning about the state's 5-Star Variance program and have some discussion about that. I want you all to be fully aware of what the expectations would be. So bear with me. I'm going to share my screen, and then I'll go. My screen sharing is disabled, so I'm not really sure what that means. But
let me see here.
Let's see. So you could actually post your questions in the chat if you'd like, or we have a small enough group that we could have a conversation if you'd like. So let me just go ahead and while Greg is looking at that, maybe I can, let me get my, essentially what the some of you already know, and we talked a little bit about this the last time, is that we're launching a Stay Open Safely campaign, which we've already been busy dispensing really cool masks that say support local businesses. We just ordered some that say eat locally, so we'll be able to get those out to you so that you can give them to your staff and even give them to your patrons if you'd like. But that program is essentially so one of us can at least have contact with you. If you have any questions on a personal level specifically to your business, we can help answer those questions. And so I think we have 1,500 sales tax licenses, if sort of round numbers. That's a lot of people to get around to. I've been starting with restaurants and some of the closer in smaller businesses. Some of the corporate businesses and the big box businesses already have guidance from their corporate offices. So I am particularly focusing on the smaller businesses that may not have that kind of support. So a couple things, just so you know, that Montrose County, if you've been following the ever ubiquitous dial from the state, we are in the orange, firmly in the orange, and actually we had an improvement over our last 14-day. And as you know, we keep track of the 14-day case counts and hospital status. And we are actually, we dropped our active cases, oh, there we go. Oh no, we're in NASA. Well, that's cool. Okay, here we go. I got it. Okay, so let's just obviously these things are a work in progress constantly. So So just a couple things, and I know you all are tired. In fact, I saw on Facebook someone said, does everybody have to keep telling us to be safe? I just want to underscore that Montrose County has really been focusing on the prevention aspects of this. If we can stop somebody who has symptoms from going into your restaurant, then we slow the spread. So that's kind of our goal. So I'm just going to review them because we're not sick of enough of them, but we want you to stay home, or your employees to stay home if they're sick. Call a doctor. It's nice to have a plan in place so that if somebody does have to quarantine, they know exactly what that means. That doesn't mean, going to a party. That means staying at home. And if your family is even isolating into a separate room is best. Our Commissioner Caddy spent 14 days in the basement while he was quarantining, and I did the same. I wasn't in the basement, but I was alone. So we want you to make sure that you have you're thinking ahead in case this happens. Obviously, distancing to avoid that prolonged contact, mask use, hand wash, sanitizer, and then sanitation of any high touch areas. So I just want to underscore that as our preliminary method to really slow the spread. So this is what I was referring to, our last 14-day period. We were in the orange still, but our case count, if you notice the top row here, was 1,267 of the 2-week cumulative incidence of COVID cases. And if you look at the next one, that is actually dropped to 1,094. So that's going in the correct direction. I don't think the graph actually shows yet. We should have been able to move it further into down into the orange, but the 2-week average positivity rate, which is also something we follow and track, dropped. So we are firmly in the orange. You see the last 14-day and how we've improved this 14-day. And then finally, we have 14 days of declining or stable hospitalizations in Montrose County. That's also a really good sign. What we're seeing is that hospitalizations are a shorter stay. Doctors are sort of, getting clued in on, the best treatment options for patients. So patients are staying fewer days in the hospital. So that's a good thing. So I want to just sort of kick this back to what my goal is. And Mayor Bynum is with us on this, is that we want to remain in the orange, because orange means that we can maintain at least 25% capacity in the restaurants. We can stay open, and we want to make sure that our business community stays robust and remains in orange. Actually, my goal is to move it to yellow, and then finally my number 3 goal is to get to green. And we can do that by the precautions that I mentioned in the first slide. It really comes down to us being careful about how we manage the spread. And so again, we get to green by reducing that number of positive cases, by keeping the hospital capacity down and low. So those are my goals. I hope they're your goals too. But of course, we all are aware that the state has put forth a 5-star variance program that would allow businesses, even if we drop to the red, to operate. I want to reiterate that Montrose County does not intend to go into the red. And even if we have the case count that goes into the red, we will still keep businesses open as long as we can do so safely. That has been our mantra since the beginning, and it continues to be our focus. The 5-star variance is going to be a really heavy lift, and I want you all to be fully aware of what the requirements are. So as you know, the state put this forth. The final reading on the variance program came down just this week, beginning of this week. And we would have, the process is such, the county would have to apply to the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment with a plan in place. We'd have to establish what they're calling an administrative committee, which is made up of local public health officials, elected officials, someone from the business community, a community member at large, and others, but it's a robust committee to sort of review this certification process. These reports would have to be, we would have to be able to present weekly to the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment every week, which businesses have been certified, which have been kicked off the certification, and we'd have to notify them of any warnings and revocations of the 5-star variance. We'd have to do regular site visits, regular inspections. Now, again, for those stores like Qdoba, restaurants and or maybe Marshall's, Home Depot, they have a corporate edict that they follow. So I feel like they have a plan in place that works for their businesses. But again, focusing on the smaller businesses is important. So here's basically the compliance parameters that you'd have to think about. Mask would be mandatory, 100% mandatory, and you would have to enforce the 6-foot distancing. That means your tables would have to be spread out. You would have to comply with that. Patrons would have to wear their masks to their table. If they went to the bathroom, they'd have to put their mask back on. You'd have to be responsible for regular sanitation and cleaning, which can be, I mean, I think most restaurants are doing that now anyway. But adding to that, you'd have to do daily symptom and exposure checks with your employees. That would mean going down the list, doing temperature checks on every employee. Do they have symptoms? And then taking temperature. And you can't just say, do you have symptoms? You have to go through the entire symptom checklist. Then you'd have to screen your customers and record their names and their contact information. So for every customer that comes into your location, you would have to have their name. You'd have to be able to retrieve their contact information. And I think that's going to be a tough one. Many of the restaurants and other businesses have already told me that some of their customers will not do that, will not share that information. So that would be a tough thing to do. But if they won't let you do that, then that's part of the process that we would have to look at that and probably not certify you if that was not happening. You would have to come up with a very specific written plan for how you're going to implement and then how you're going to comply with this 5-star plan. And then you'd have to then have plans for your outbreak detection. How you're going to report, what your response is going to be. So you have to actually do some of the work of what public health would normally do, so that you have a business specific plan. Something I highlighted it in red, sufficient ventilation. That means that according to CDPH&E, there has to be sufficient air purifier, airflow. There's some very specific guidelines on the state website you'd have to comply with. And one of the inspectors would have to make sure that that was happening in your location. And then you'd have to be able to identify and do exposure notification to employees and customers if somebody tested positive or if you had an outbreak situation. So I want you to think about how much this adds to your normal course of business. It's a pretty robust ask. You would also have to display publicly that if somebody is unhappy and they want to complain to the State Department of Health, the CDPH&E, that you'd have to post that at your business prominently so people can see it. And I know that, in fact, I was talking to somebody yesterday. Someone posted on Facebook that they were thrilled that they could identify 58 local businesses in Montrose that were not complying, and they went straight to the state. So this kind of oversight and I have to say tattletaling is going to be difficult for all of us to deal with. So, and then finally, you'd have to do extra effort for your at-risk population. So if you had elderly, you'd have to have them completely separated off into another area to make sure that they're safe. So think about all those things and how they impact your business flow. It's already been tough to operate at a level of 25%. So I want you to think about how this would add to it and if that would make people feel safe enough to come into your restaurants, safer than you are right now. And then you'd have to have 0 prior citations of noncompliance. So the way this works is you get one warning, and then after that one warning, if there's a noncompliance report, then you're basically eliminated from the program. So that means one inspector stops in, you have 2 people not wearing a mask, boom, that's a compliance citation, which could be a problem. So again, I want you to know that Montrose County is supporting staying in orange. We think that the best alternative for you businesses, and I want to hear from you too, is to stay open, stay in business. Perhaps some ideas are doing some, I suggested to a couple of restaurants that they do a short video and post it on Facebook about all the precautions they're taking, because what we're seeing is that some people are just afraid to come into the restaurants because they're not certain that you're doing what you need to do in order to make that safe. So again, if you want customers and you want to continue the kind of robust, maybe not robust is not the right word, but at least keep customers coming into your establishment, we need to make sure that you're doing that. I put these up because I've been out giving these masks away. And if you would like some of these stay safe distances, this is on my door, so I want people to stay 6 feet away from me, I guess. I just wanted to be able to demonstrate to you that we had some supplies that if you needed them, please email me or give me a call and let me know. But again, I think staying in the orange is probably our best situation, and Montrose we're doing really well. I mean, I think that when we look at the mobility data, we're seeing that it's telling us that people are not necessarily going out and roaming around. We don't have a bunch of big events going on, so that's a really good situation to have. But we do want to keep people going into the small businesses. We want people to we want you to have a great Christmas season, but we want you to do it safe. So I put my contact information here. I want you all to write it down. I will be available anytime you have a question. Public health is also available, but I give you this specifically so you know that we're accessible and willing to have a conversation with you if you have any questions. So with that, I'd like to open it up to any questions, and I haven't been watching on the chat. Do we have any questions at this point?
Absolutely. That's my job here, is to
Okay.
field these questions for you. So question, you're emphasizing restaurants, but but can you talk about gyms and other small businesses as well?
Sure. Well, our expectation is that the gyms do the very same thing. That when I'm focusing on restaurants because they seem to be hardest hit, although I would have to say that the health clubs are also struggling, and the mask compliance, everything that we're talking about is not different for one business than another. So if you operate a gym, it is really important for you to make sure that you're following these guidelines so that when you reach out to your members that perhaps aren't coming in, that they feel safe that they can come in. So that means, and I think I've seen at some of the gyms already, there's a lot of distancing of the machines. The mask wearing would be mandatory if we went to this, the state 5-star variance. And right now, as you all know, Montrose County is not enforcing. We essentially trust that you're adults, that you've seen the guidance, that you're, probably know it as well as we know what the guidance is. And we want you to maintain the mask being safe with masks and distancing. And when you can't distance, the masks are imperative. This is spread by aerosolation of, when you breathe. So when you're in a gym in particular, that's going to be a hot spot for where this could occur. So we really are imploring that everybody does their part in order to make everybody and help everybody be safe so the businesses can stay open.
Sue, I've got a great question here that combines both your skills as a commissioner and your skills as a facilitator and working with people and being the mind reader that you are. and that is, can you offer some tips and tricks to deal with customers or patrons who might not want to wear a mask, and maybe phrases that the restaurant owner, the bar owner, the retail store owner might use that might help them out?
Well, there is, I think signage is really important. And I have been suggesting to businesses, they put a sign up that says, if you like shopping here and if you respect me, you will respect that I have to do this. And I think putting some signage up that is personal, that speaks to your specific business would be really useful. And there are some people that are adamant about it and they will leave. And I'm really sorry that we have those kinds of folks that even if I didn't like a mask, I would wear it out of respect for you. So I would encourage you to do that kind of signage, which might help. We're going to kick off a kindness campaign where we're actually talking a little bit about that and trying to help people understand that it's not your fault that you just want to stay open. This is not you being an awful, nasty business owner. This is you doing what we need to do in order to contain the spread and for you to keep it open, your store open. So again, I would do personalized signage like that. And I would have whoever greets the customer that comes in, I guess if I were the business owner, I'd want to be there and I'd want to do it myself. And I know that this is putting a lot on the owners, but the business is where the owner is there and the owner is able to come up to me and say, you know what, thank you for complying. Thank you for doing this. It really means a lot to me. So make sure that that frontline person is trained in talk about conflict management. They really need to approach a customer in a way that doesn't incite or aggravate or argue. They just need to be empathic and say, look, I am so sorry we have to do this, but we have to. And I hope that you love our food or you like shopping here as much as you have in the past, because I really need your business. And I think that will go a long way. I would suggest that you do some videos that can be short. They don't have to be long. They don't have to be professional, but that you upload them on Facebook and say, look, here's what we're doing here. And we love you. We want you in our store. We want to stay in business. I mean, what would Montrose look like if all our businesses just shut down? It would be awful. So we have to make sure that we keep our economy robust, and the small businesses are the key to that.
Great. Here's another question. If the Montrose County isn't going to do the 5-star program, is there another way that businesses can communicate to their customers that they're following all the best protocols?
I think the video is a really good idea. And if anybody wants to reach out to me, I am happy to come and video you. I mean, we're not talking, it doesn't have to be any longer than a 30-minute. Here's what we're doing at Jimmers. Here's what we're doing at Fabula. Here's what we're doing to make sure that we're all safe in Montrose County. And I think that we could do something fun and uplifting. And I think that's a really good way to get the message out. You all know that we're challenged here with messaging. We can either go on Facebook, you can put an ad in the paper, or you can put an ad in the Montrose Mirror. But other than that, we don't really have a really great communication, a unified communication system. So I would recommend that you do social media, that you do signage in your place of business, and let's do a video. I mean, I think it would be fun to have all our businesses posting, we're safe, come on in. I think that would go a long way.
And maybe that's the hashtag, we're safe. Or, I mean, maybe the county can try and come up with a catchphrase that businesses could use that would, we're Montrose safe or something like that. So that instead of 5-star, we as a community could focus on some other phrase that businesses could latch on to be part of, something like that.
I think that's what we thought the Stay Open Safely would be. But we're keen on always coming up with new hashtags for sure. But I think we talked about the county providing a videographer to do a video after the first of the year. If anybody would like to participate in that, we'd love to have you involved. And I think that the best way to express to your clients or your customers that you're safe is to put signage up. And I would even say, I've told a couple of businesses to say, hey, we've had 0 outbreaks here. We've had 0, we're clean. Here's what we do every single day. And I think if a customer saw how you have to disinfect and clean and wear masks and all of that all the time, I think that they would have a better level of empathy for you all and then participate. So if you want to participate in that video, shoot me an email, call me, whatever, get in touch with me.
Great. We have about 5 minutes left. Are there any additional questions that folks want to ask personally? If you do, you can use the raise your hand function, and one of our hosts can unmute you to ask your question if you don't want to type, or feel free to type your question in the chat or the Q&A today. I want to thank Commissioner Hansen for being here and sharing this great information.
Yeah, let me just add one more thing. I think that we have not eliminated the opportunity or the option of the 5-star program, but frankly, I think it's better for us to stay in orange. We're not closing anything down. If a business closes down, they're doing it of their own volition. We have not asked anybody to close their businesses down. The only time a business would have to shut down temporarily is if they were identified as an outbreak, and our outbreaks are not coming from restaurants or small businesses. So I want to make sure that you all understand that clearly, that we have not totally eliminated it, but frankly, from an enforcement perspective, I think it would be very difficult to keep up with this with 1,500 sales tax licensees. In order to do, we hardly have enough people to do all the contact tracing and the testing that's possible. So this puts a huge, and we're not unwilling to do that. I just don't want to roll a program out that we can't roll out in the way that the county would want to roll it out, which would be covering all the bases, making sure that we can be compliant. So if anybody has any additional questions about that, please feel free to email me and chat about that. So I know, Ned, you had some interest in that. So feel free to, we can have a conversation about that. But I really appreciate you all being here. I think it speaks to your diligence about wanting to do what's important and what's right for the spreading of this, or stopping the spread of this virus. And I think that, just to leave you on a high note, Montrose County we're doing a great job as a county, as a community. So even though that you don't see 100% mask compliance everywhere, our numbers still are going down. That does not mean we're opening up free mask. Don't wear a mask, but we want you to stay safe that way. But it does tell me that what we're doing is working. So let's focus on that. Let's focus on getting to green and finally getting open, and then let's look forward to these vaccines really making a difference in our community. So thank you, Mayor, for inviting me again to do this. And, you know, always willing to, the business communities are really important to us, as they are to you. And we want to make sure that they have all the information that they need to stay in business and have robust sales.
Great. Thank you so much, Commissioner Hansen, for joining us this morning. Our business community, stay tuned for future Wednesday morning business updates. If you have a particular topic you'd like us to address, please reach out to the City of Montrose and let us know. You can reach out to me, Barbara Bynum, or to the DART coordinator, Kendall Creamer, and we can get those topics addressed in 2021. For example, if you feel like you need more information about liquor licensing or changes in the new state allocation for the money that's going to COVID relief, these are things we could address starting on January 6th in the new year. We will not plan on having a business update next Wednesday, but stay tuned for future ones. And thanks again to Commissioner Hansen. We appreciate you being here. And thanks for everyone who was able to attend.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.